Hey guys, Art17 here, and we are in week 11 still. This is assignment 21. So we're doing some painting. I mentioned if you absolutely cannot get paints or don't have them, can't get them, you could use maybe pastels or colored pencils or watercolor, which is a paint, but acrylic, watercolor, pastels, colored pencils might work to do these assignments right here. Number 21 is a full color painting. It says painting, but if you really absolutely cannot get paints, I will work with you. But I'd prefer you to use some paints. And I will have a couple of videos on mixing now colors. In number 20, I provided one for mixing monochromatic, which is using one color with black and white to make it darker or lighter tint and shade of that particular color. So you're making a monochromatic painting, you have to watch that video and watch the other videos provided. But this one, full color. So I'll show you some images from Bing, and they can be very colorful. It might be best to stay with something representational or at least abstract expressionism, or impressionism, which would be more along the lines of this. You're not painting perfect leaves here. You're dabbing them in with color, and everything else is sort of quickly with the brush stroke showing. It's not like a photogenic sort of take on it with realism. It's realism, but an impression of the realism. So I particularly like that a lot. I think it adds to a lot more wonder, and certainly you can kind of get more expressive with the colors. And there are some kind of real abstract ones here using color, but that also opens the door for just splashing a bunch of paint on your canvas or your paper and calling it a day, and it doesn't really have any great content, or not a lot of thought went into it necessarily. Now, some artists have been very successful in doing that. I don't know. Maybe you could try it, but I would stay away from it if you're not really good at it or haven't done it before. And then try something more representational. You could go this direction as well. Because as long as you're not using the same, they do have a variation of blue here, kind of went purple blue. And the green is more, yellow green and more of a real green. And the yellow seems to be all the same, and so does the orange. I'd like you to bring variation to each color with the black and white. You can also use other colors in there. I'll show you. I'll add that in just for the advanced people on color mixing. And sometimes you can use red and green in colors and make them darker and still keep that color true to itself in ways. So it doesn't have to be black and white added to a color to make it lighter and darker. It can be other colors that happen that you can do that with. But this is just a lot of examples. Some of them are very cool, and you can get very representational if you would like with this. It's still a little on the impression side, but I would say this is more realism, especially in the front with all these the daisies here. That looks pretty real. So, like I say, you can go either way with this: impressionism, realism. And a lot of artists choose impressionism because it kind of opens up for more room of creativity in a way, because you're not locked into doing exactly what the photo is or what a photo image would be in your mind. So I think that's a good way to maybe approach it. Like I say, you can do either or. Let me go back, and now that we've explored, this is probably acrylic paints. You know, oils are going to take a long time to use. So let's talk about pastel, and that's chalk or oil pastels, and they can be very cool. They can look like paintings. In fact, the oil pastels kind of act like paint when you smudge them around enough. When you add enough of the oil pastel on the paper, it generally works with paper better than canvas, because it's hard to get in all the little crevices of canvas, but oil does that very well. So, you know, you can work that as you will, but I think it's best to use paper for this, and Bristol would be better than something else because it's thicker. A lot of these are impression. You can tell because there's there's brushstroke, or not brushstroke. In this case, you're seeing the work here as opposed to tiny little leaves all painted perfectly. They're kind of dabbing in the color where that would be, and kind of quickly doing the trees, and down in here, they're kind of working with the colors together so that they create an impression of actually what's going on. It's kind of like the fleeting moment, really quickly done. And this is more probably your well, that's still more impression. These are, a lot of these are very impressionist. This is probably more of realism here, right? And you can go there if you want. So it's a little harder to accomplish, to be perfect like this. I think it leaves a lot of room for creativity to be on the impression side of things. And certainly put a lot of content into whatever. These are the more landscapey things. It can be whatever. It doesn't have to be, you could do cats. Let's do cats and see what happens. So, these are more photogenic cats, right? I don't really see, well, this is more of a whimsical sort of take on a cat. I like that, I think that's cool. There's more, a little bit of humor going on in that one, and of course they are kind of abstract because their eyes are exaggerated and the colors are exaggerated, so that's like expressionism and abstract expressionism going on there. But any subject you want to do. Let's go to colored pencils real quick and see what that's about. It's not really paintings, they're drawings. Colored pencils can be pretty awesome when you get the right ones, and you can blend the colors slightly with each other, like this one. They're kind of going in and out of color schemes here, working with each other, and some blend over and they become darker where they do that. It becomes a darker shade of the two colors, which can create another version of the color. It could be a gray or brown or kind of a dull black with the other colors in it. So it's kind of a good way to do things if you want to use colored pencils. And these are A lot of different ideas here. Some are really super perfect. Let's do this. So yeah, here we go. Lots of kind of landscapey things and bridges and whatnot. Pretty cool ideas. And then you have all the reflections in the water from what's above. All these trees and plants and everything get reflected into the water, and that's what makes the water happen. And the sky too. So everything is a reflection on the water, becomes the water. All these colors are going to end up in the water as a reflection, and the water being maybe slightly grays and blues, though not really super bright. But you can look at all those ideas. Whenever you drum something up like this and put it, it usually gives you a bunch more examples down below. So if you wanted to do fruit, right? Of course, you're going to have your light represented on anything, even the landscapes. Where's the light source coming from? Where's your cast shadows? Where's the darker shadow side and the lighter side that's catching the sun or the light? That's all got to be represented now in color. So you decide what darker shades of that color you're going to use to go on the other side. So not necessarily going to be totally black. Even these cast shadows aren't totally black. They have other colors in them. They backed off gray or whatever. And mostly they are darker than the shadow side of the fruit here, which is, as I see it, sort of a mixture of darker shades of the color of the fruit, and the lighter shades are on the other side where the light is catching. So that's how you would approach that. And there's plenty of ideas here. Real sunsets on water. Of course, this is, extensive. It's not just really quickly done. You're going to have to spend some time on this. But the blues and greens in here, and then you have the yellows and orange and a little bit of red, some purple. It's awesome. But I would get an idea from this, unless you're really going to go outside and look at a landscape or a seascape. Get some ideas from imagination. Unless you're really good at that, you're going to have to remember all the aspects that this class has taught you: the shadow side, the light side, the shading, to create a shape. Without this being light and dark on the top and a highlight there, it would be flat. It would just look like a flat item. Wouldn't look roundish, rounded. So same with stems. And inside of this mushroom, it's darker in there because there's no light. So you got to think about that all the time. Think about your light source constantly and how it's hitting on your subject and where the shadow side is, where the shadows are, where the darker areas are, where the lighter areas are, because sunlight or your light source, single light source, hopefully, is shining on one part of the item and not the other. And then there's a midtone where it makes a transition from the lighter to the darker. You have to think about that on everything you're drawing, because it creates shape. So colored pencils can be pretty awesome. Pastel, paint, either way. All right. So get some ideas here. Go to Bing or Google, put in what I'm doing, and you'll see plenty of examples of, and get some great ideas. Okay. All right. So I'll mention again that we are approaching the end of the semester. So whatever you have back in the day here, it should be to me by now, so that I can grade it, or I can give some critique on it and feedback and ask you to work on it more for a better grade. and you have time to send that to me, and we can work that out. Sometimes it takes several tries to get that better grade. And sometimes you send it back with one or two improvements, and there you go. And when I don't ask you for it back again to work on more, or you refuse to do it, then we stay with that grade, which is maybe a C, possibly a B. But if you've done everything I've asked, and I don't ask, I say, good job, okay, that looks good, I don't ask for it back, then you've gotten an A on it, for the most part. Because I keep trying to get you an A. And as long as you'll work with me and keep trying to improve these with my suggestions, your assignments, and you are successful, or I'll keep asking you to do it till you refuse to send it back to me. All right? But if you keep sending it back, and pretty soon I'll say, okay, you've done quite a lot to this, and you're improved. It looks pretty good, and then typically you're going to get an A on that. But if you don't put the effort in and you don't send it back and you don't try, you're getting lower grades on it. Okay. All right, so send all your work from prior weeks and get those in so we can head up to the end of the semester and in good stead, and you will end up with great grades. All right.